You go live, it'll say. Welcome to the Pipe IQ podcast, where we cover the latest AI topics focusing on business and sales automation. My name is Eric Nilsson, and I have my co-host Rajesh Karam. Today is Sunday, November 3rd, 2024. Rajesh, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm actually traveling today. I'm in Barcelona. So I've come over to
Mm,
Barcelona. They've got a conference here that I'm covering, VMware Explore with Broadcom. So we're here working the week. It's beautiful. I flew through Philadelphia and then directly into Barcelona. So I had a pretty good flight over, and we're just meeting big customers this week and then got our show going. So it's gonna be a nice thing. How's things in Palo Alto?
awesome. Awesome. Yeah, it's great. It's great. Palo Alto, it's getting a little colder now, of course. We are entering fall slash winter. So, but this week, yeah, just Halloween and kids. But yeah,
You know,
has
you know what I,
definitely.
You know what I saw that was interesting was on Facebook some of the feeds of Steve Jobs' wife's Halloween party. They got a street that goes through Palo Alto, and man, it was
Right.
crazy the decorations they did the other day. It was just, and they were
Yeah.
party, and there were people, there was music. They're going all out when it comes to Halloween
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
decorations in Palo Alto, right?
Absolutely. We were, so that's one epicenter. I'm told the other epicenter for Halloween in Palo Alto is Marissa Mayer's house. So Marissa Mayer has like these, again, like some sort of a haunted house thing, and there's the
Right.
line outside her house is like 2 hours long. So yeah, it was too difficult to go
Yeah,
in on
yeah.
that
It
time,
it
right?
seems like for Silicon Valley, there were two traditions from holiday. April Fools was always a big one where people did crazy
Mm,
stuff, right? And then
right,
Halloween. And I feel like April Fools has kind of fallen off, right? So and it's
right.
definitely gone the Halloween scenario. And so where Silicon
Yeah,
Valley is it's kind of like the show in the desert, Burning Man, where everybody just takes time to build crazy stuff. So and I think that happens all over
right.
the nation. So got through
Yeah.
that. We're done with that now, and now we're moving back. And it has been a busy week in AI, hasn't it? Like, and
Oh my God.
on the show today, we're going to talk about search and as search enters AI main stage, right? So we're going to talk
Yes.
all about search and what do we expect to happen here, right? Like, I think there's big changes. So we'll get to that. But before we do get to that, Rajesh, what's the news? What's in the news?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a bunch of things going on. Definitely on the search front, I think there is a little bit of game theory going on here, and we'll talk in depth there in our sort of main segment, right? But Meta, Google, and OpenAI, of course, right, and Perplexity, right, all in the fray there, right, doing things. So that's kind of one big, I think, development. Second is I see again some sort of cooperation going on between Microsoft and OpenAI, and like OpenAI, Microsoft integrated other models in its GitHub Copilot, right? Like so for the support for Gemini and Cohere, I believe, right, or Anthropic, in addition to OpenAI, which was the original models that were powering Copilot. So I think different players are trying to lessen their reliance on each other and try to
Mm,
go broader so that
right, right.
they have optionality, right? So that's kind of an interesting trend that I see happening.
Yeah.
And some yeah,
So before you get too far away from search, which we're going to talk about today, the main
yes,
announcement, in case people didn't catch this, and I'll up level this a little bit, is that OpenAI announced the availability of search in ChatGPT, right? And so
mhm,
now they
right.
formally have search. How does that work? What do they mean by search in ChatGPT?
Yeah, so I think, until now, if you went to ChatGPT and did a search, you asked a question, it would, and which was related to sort of time, something recent, it would say, hey, my cutoff for search is, I don't know, April 2023 and so on. And it made an explicit comment that it's not able to search things in real time, right? And now, at least in my Plus account, ChatGPT Plus paid account, we are able to do it. And I think, we checked on a free account as well. It's able to go, right, go if you said, hey, show me the latest comments from Sundar Pichai for his recent, Q3 earnings call. It'll give you, a dump of, some of the information from there. So
That's really interesting because before that they had these models and the models were time stamped with stamps, and I'm sure the AI model where it's processing and doing LLM kind of behavior probably is still time stamped, but what they've somehow done is integrated real time search into their offerings, right?
absolutely, absolutely. And this is huge, actually. This is sort of now Google and ChatGPT are, going head to head on the biggest cash cow ever, perhaps.
Yes,
you
yeah,
know,
I believe so. Right, right.
right. So
As
this is
we
actually a
drive
pretty significant
in
development.
Palo Alto into Mountain View, which is one town over, as you go into
Right.
Mountain View, you get stuck in traffic, and it's because of the Google exit, right? And the
Right.
Google exit in the
Exactly.
morning just has streams and streams. It's like, and they own like a million buildings right throughout Mountain View and Palo Alto and like San Antonio Road, and it's like this is all funded by the cash cow of search, right? There's no
Yes. Yes. I mean, so there's a big this is big territory in terms of who's going to grab market share. And I mean, again, not to delve too much into detail, but like, I mean, every percentage point of search share, right, that somebody takes from Google, for example, right,
right,
even
right,
which what
right,
Bing has done, right, in the last couple of years, right,
right.
means a huge number in terms of revenues and market cap, for that matter,
And
right?
we talked
Uh,
about Perplexity. So let me just
yeah.
for people that are listening to this, like Perplexity is a search engine, just like Google or others. Other search destinations. Perplexity is perplexity.ai, which when you go there, www.perplexity.ai, you get a whole search environment like Google or Yahoo or any other
Yeah.
search engine. It gives you that search GUI, but that's all based on their own AI. And now they've been funded, $7 or $8 billion fund for that as well, which we talked about on the show last week, right? So this is kind of
Yes. Yes.
Perplexity is an extension of that. Everybody's competing on that. Yeah. So that makes
That's right.
sense.
That's right. Yeah,
What else is
there's a
happening?
lot going on. Yeah, I mean, another thing is, Google, again, talking about game theory and people jockeying. Um, Anthropic, Claude released this whole thing about, robotic process automation for like computers kind of thing, right? Like, hey, you can instruct Claude to able to go do tasks that you do on your machine. So Google is prepping to do something similar, right? So that's an interesting kind of development, right? So apparently it's going to be releasing, or at least a preview in December. So that's another interesting development. Another one on the probably a little bit on the I don't know whether I should say funny side, but the Chinese military has used llama models apparently to launch their own uh, LLM for military intelligence use or field intelligence that people can use in the military for understanding,
Right, right,
different aspects of
right.
combat. So it's called, I believe, it's called ChatBit. Is what is the name of that model that they have developed on top of Llama 2.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I know that I read, and I run a community for coders at Broadcom and VMware, and
Mm.
Google announced that I think 25% of all their code is now written by AI, right? Do they have their own AI
Mm.
engine that's now writing that code, right? And so again, industry changing.
Yeah, no, I mean, that number is pretty significant. It's sort of hard to ignore, right? So what Google in their latest Q3 earnings call, Sundar Pichai mentioned that, yeah, 25% of all the new code written at Google is now generated by AI. And so what they have done is built their own model, as expected, and they call it Goose. And so Goose has been trained on the last 25 years of all of their code base. And developers within Google can basically work with Goose to get code. And I think the key difference here, for developers really working with AI in terms of code generation is that the Copilot will spit out code for you, sure, right? But the question is, you have to review it and make sure that there's no hallucination, it's calling the right functions and microservices and so on and so forth. So it's more of a review function, right? So you end up not spending too much time writing it, but you spend a lot of time not a lot of time, but you spend a time reviewing it. So, but looks like Google has made that transition very fast. I mean, 25% is pretty massive number. So I would say, that's something to kind of look at and take note of.
Yeah. So making the news, 25% of code written at Google is now, written by an AI that they built, right? Their own engine, right? And you can see that happening over and over. We talked about, automation in the enterprise, right? And this is the case where when you get real capability, pretty soon you're building into your tools, Copilot or others, and next thing you know, AI is doing a lot of that work for you, right? And smart.
Yeah.
I gotta say that's smart. One of my mail clients I use, right? My personal mail client, right? Now just introduced. I went into it yesterday, and popped up. Hey, we've got an AI engine on our mail client now. We'll let it process your mail for you, make recommendations for responses, that kind of stuff. So again,
Right.
everybody in this business, right? I mean, if you look at Pipe IQ, that's what some of the stuff you're doing is in that sales automation model where you can have this AI start taking on tasks that you don't have to spend your time doing now. And Google announced 25% of their code is being written there. I know that when we were doing VMware, we ran our ESXi code base through it, and then start having our own engine. Again, we trained our own model, right? So it's an internal private AI model, but then it can write functionality in the hypervisor, right? So again,
Right.
everybody can do this. So interesting stuff. And speaking of what's happening on Broadcom, because I work there, a day job, OpenAI announced that they're doing their own internal chips, and we talked about internal chips on previous episodes, right? Where
Right.
if you're spending power on GPUs, right, and you're just running NVIDIA GPUs, those GPUs aren't made for your particular AI model, right? And so whether you have small models, large models, having custom silicon to do your AI work, reduces your power bill if nothing else. Possibly also gets you more speed, more responsive, et cetera. But this is coming right now. You also have AI specific chips. OpenAI is now in that business of building their own chip. They're doing it with Broadcom and TSMC. So
That's definitely an interesting development. I don't know if folks remember, but Sam Altman was doing the rounds in the Middle East like a few months ago, raising. It was reported that he was raising $7 billion for building his own chip fab. And I don't know where that went, but this is probably in the same vein, saying that, hey, we're going to build our own. Same vein, right? So I think it's definitely
every week new announcements. That's why we do a news segment, because every week new announcements. And obviously the biggest one that we're going to talk about today, and we're actually dedicating the whole hour to it, is search and what's actually going to change in search, right? And it is going to change, right? The Google cash cow might be seeing the end of it as the campuses have been ever expanding in Google land. So it should be interesting to talk about this.
I think it's going to be a very interesting topic to talk about. I think the first backdrop that we need to give is actually their latest Q3 earnings. I mean, they generated $76 billion, right? Search, Google services, right? Which is a 13% increase from previous year. And I mean, a lot of it is, cloud revenue as well. But obviously, most of it, a large part of it is a search revenue. Now, the interesting point really is, okay, how, I mean, and this is not new, right? Like, hey, where is this whole ad revenue from search going, right? Where is this whole market going, right? And I think this ChatGPT entering the fray, being able to do a real-time search, I think now brings it into focus, really. I mean, this is not something that Sundar Pichai has been thinking about today, right? It's been on his mind for 2 years now, most likely, right? And they've been trying to respond to it, right? So I was in an event last night, and they've just, I think Google Vertex, they have released and Google's sort of LLM stuff is a bit confusing for me personally, at least. But Google Vertex, which is, I think, I don't know, there's Google AI Studio as well. But what they have released is what they're calling grounded generation. So grounded generation is basically giving you references of where I picked up, this search. If I'm giving you a result, I'm going to tell you where I picked it up from. So grounding it in sort of real stuff. It's sort of, so just letting you know that it's not a hallucination and so on. So they have released that grounded generation. And now if you look up in Perplexity or in ChatGPT, it already gives you that, right? Like from the front end, you can see where it came from, right? So I think that's kind of super interesting, right? ChatGPT, though, while they've released the search functionality on the front end, it is not available on the API yet. So, as somebody developing stuff, certainly looking forward to when that will be available, because, this is a pretty massive shift for a lot of players. I mean, this is the rug getting pulled from under you for a lot of players in the data ecosystem, actually, because until now, it was not possible to do real-time search and retrieve that data, structure it, etc. Right? Like now, that whole layer, I think, is going to undergo a change. You may not need a ton of data sources; could become obsolete. So anyway, this is more of an application layer conversation.
Yeah, that's I do run this AI class for code community at VMware, and one of the things we learn is the API and how to consume the API, right, for ChatGPT, right, and that does change when you introduce search, and now you'll have API for search, where I can actually then write my own programs to interact with search, right? It's like, that's also powerful, right? Like where all of a sudden now, as an application developer, I never have to send anybody to Google ever again, right? I can just harness the AI engine from OpenAI to get all of this data, including searchability of it, right? So
absolutely. And until now, if you're a developer, you'd have to use, say, LangChain or some other framework, and then use a separate search capability, bring in that search capability, push it to ChatGPT or Claude, etc., and then get an output, right? Now, some of those steps could get obviated the moment, in the back end, they make search available directly, right? So this is where, I think a lot of interesting, sort of tussle is going to happen between Google and ChatGPT or OpenAI, in the sense that Google comes with native search capability, right? So integrating that into Gemini is going to be much easier for Google to do, right? Compared to OpenAI. So it's going to be
that's interesting. When you look at the battle between OpenAI and Google brings just giant search engine, right? And OpenAI brings good AI, right? And so
AI capability.
OpenAI is going to have to catch up in search, and Google's still trying to catch up on AI. And then, we'll see where they'll land. Now, maybe it's a Pepsi Coke thing, and we'll get it. But I want to up-level that a little bit, or that dovetails into what I've been thinking, which is, if you look at the history of search, right, when the internet showed up, if you guys remember Alta Vista was there. They were one of the first search engines, and, they were doing well at the very beginning. Yahoo got into business. They were doing well. But what really made the differentiator to me was not how well the search engine behaved, because the reality is I get a screen or two or three. How many people actually dig through 15 screens of Google search? No, you look at the first couple pages, and then you usually try to figure out where you want to go next. You start clicking and reading things. And what Google did was they did a really nice user interface, right? Yahoo and Alta Vista started cluttering their screen with things that they wanted to recommend to you, right? And they almost made it a portal, right? Like they fell into the portal business, and search augmented the portal business, but they were in the manual search business by popping up things on your screen, where Google stayed pure. They just gave you the white screen with the search. You type in your thing, you get your answers pretty quick. Back then, there weren't pages and pages of ads, right? And so they won that business. And for me, they won the business on the simplicity of their UI, right? Now I look at OpenAI and I look at ChatGPT now, right? And I go, okay. And then, oh, by the way, Google paid money to Firefox and Netscape and all the browsers to make their search engine default, right? So they spread out their money to make sure that their search was ubiquitous across all the different browsers, right? And so that was kind of like a user interface, kind of get to market channel management strategy, right? I look
Yeah,
at
I mean,
this now. Yeah. I look at this now and I
go ahead,
wonder,
go ahead.
is ChatGPT going to be the user interface that wins the battle here, right? There definitely searchability makes sense, but then how does this
Yes.
get delivered to everyone? That's going to be the interesting war.
Yeah, no. So I think a couple of things. So first of all, I mean, I'm not sure I'm in complete agreement, Eric, about the interface. I mean, clearly the interface was a huge play, right? And
Right.
I mean, yeah, as the way you framed it got me thinking about how simplicity is so powerful, and also focusing on one problem and being laser sharp about it can have
Right.
such an outsized impact, right? For a tech company, right? So I think definitely that is in play here. But also, I mean, just the whole page rank algorithm and ability to surface, high quality results. Now that could also be in play. And I mean, I don't remember as much now about Altavista and Yahoo, right? What kind of results? But
Mhm.
Google probably was also giving better results, right? In addition to the fact that they were not making this into
No,
a sort of a portal-like play.
I disagree with that. I used all of them. I
Mm.
used Alta
Okay.
Vista to begin with, and eventually Alta Vista became so cluttered that I just stopped
Mm,
using them. Right, and Google was just an
mm,
easy AltaVista.com was like, it was just one of these things. Yahoo did the same thing. Yahoo started
mm,
cluttering everything up. Right, so they didn't focus on just presenting me search results. They didn't have single-minded focus. Right, where when I got to
mm,
Google, I didn't really care. I was just looking for my answer. And if you look at the general
mm,
American public that was using internet at the time, it wasn't like, oh, I need to do deep research. It was, I
mm,
just needed something that was right in my face. I do my search, and they stuck to that, and they actually published that back in the
mm,
day. Like when they would do interviews, they'd be like, yeah, we focused on just laser focus, just the way you articulated it. Now maybe their search
mm.
model was great for people that have advanced degrees like yourself and spend time drilling into everything and doing research. I'm sure it was very good, just like Microsoft Excel has the best spreadsheet algorithms. If you're
Right,
building complicated
right,
derivative analysis spreadsheets, Microsoft is the way to go,
mm,
right? And so that's how they win
right,
that battle. But also they won the battle because Microsoft Word just beat out WordPerfect because they beat
right,
it in a channel management perspective, and nobody really cared how great it was. It was just Microsoft won
right,
that battle. So I think there could
right.
be technology, the winners and losers of the technology, as
Mm,
Steve Jobs would say, is that user
mm,
interface, is the ease of use,
mm,
is the how well it works, right? And so
mm,
how well it
mm, mm.
works, you know, defeated, in the cell phone business, defeated, who was it? Nokia, right? Nokia
Right,
owned the cell
right,
phone business, and he just made it nicer, easier to use, right? It had some additional functions. So the
yeah,
question for
yeah.
search in ChatGPT, let's up level this a little
Mm,
bit and just describe to anybody
mm,
that's listening. When I
mm,
type in a search now, I can type in something and say, hey,
mm,
tell me about XYZ in this topic, and it's going to go down and search, give me real-time data. Do we
mm.
think there's going to be a better interface for this, right? Do we think that search will go out into the application, into the websites? How do we think this is going to play out?
I think it's very interesting. That's a great question. So, from a UI UX perspective, ChatGPT is advertising on Google, I believe, for people to download their Chrome plugin, right? So, thanks to antitrust regulations, first of all,
Mm,
Google can't prevent ChatGPT from advertising on Google, right? So,
hmm
but think about the browser for a moment, and of course, Google owns the Chrome's browser, actually, right? So they can't prevent anybody from publishing right, an application on Chrome. But the plugin now is interesting, right? I haven't used the plugin actually, just full
hmm
transparency, but that is basically bringing your search onto your browser, right? So I don't know exactly how it works, but you don't need to go to Chat GPT to get a result, essentially. So there's some sort of
Yeah, so
interesting angle here.
they're
Yeah,
taking a page out of Google, right? Put your plug in everywhere where you would be searching, and there it is, right?
exactly. Exactly. So that is so clever, right? So I think this is going to be an interesting sort of battle, right? So there is definitely a UI UX play here, right? Of course, the big elephant in the room here is advertising, right? Like on monetization, right? So on the monetization front, Arvind Srinivas, I believe, at TechCrunch, the CEO of Perplexity, Arvind. He spoke about how I think currently their model is around subscription, but he doesn't think subscription is a long-term sort of direction to go for Perplexity. So question then becomes, okay, hey, if you're going to rely on advertising, how is advertising going to be served up in a chat-like interface, right? And I mean, one of the points that was brought up in the event I was at yesterday was around how there's a cognitive load. So first of all, you're searching for something, you're doing a back and forth to get the right kind of answer. But then now if I inject ads into your chat conversations in a subtle fashion, that's an extra cognitive load for you to be able to parse out, oh, I'm being sold to here, beware,
Right.
buyer beware kind of thing,
Right.
right?
Right.
So which obviously is problematic. I mean, I would buy that argument, right? So so the question becomes, how can ads be served up in a chat interface without, right, like, yeah, so that the user is fully aware of it, but yet there's a monetization strategy that I'm sure it can be figured out. It's not a, I mean, this is why A/B testing and multivariate testing exists, and with millions and millions of users, and I mean, I believe the daily active users on ChatGPT right now is about 500 million potentially, right? Like, so that's a massive number. So they can conduct a ton of tests in no time, right? So
yeah,
see what works.
It brings up one of my notes I had for the show, which is, I will not be sad if list-based answering, like the Google list that puts 7 ads up in front of the list. So now I have to process how many ads am I clicking on? Does this make sense to do this? And then list-based, where I got to click and drill down. So ChatGPT is great because it gets rid of my need to click on all these list elements, right? So search results in a list format, I can't wait till that's gone. And ChatGPT has actually done that, where they actually give me conversational answer. They just give me paragraphs of this is what to learn. And I can actually see where you might actually have like graphics with pie charts or something that shows me the results, with a chart of what percentage of, in confidence do they have in this answer, or do they give me a graph with the answer, but then also give me some sponsorship ideas or things like that and it is interesting because people ask me, I think we were talking about paid channels, right? When you buy your Apple TV, right? Your Apple TV and your Hulu and all that, you don't get commercials anymore, right? You pay, they monetize by, a monthly fee. But I do miss the ads because I'd like to learn other things while I'm watching my television other than just a television. So I do like the ads. Super Bowl ads are now famous, right? They put them up because they're a way to communicate either social values or your information or things that are interesting to humans that you wouldn't necessarily be exposed to. So I think the idea that ChatGPT could have ads in there is actually okay because it could expand my knowledge, but they're going to have a nice way. And this idea that Google just stuck all the things up front, in list format, I can't wait till that's gone. And I hope they'll innovate on a UI that gives me that, but allows me to easily self-select so I don't have this load you're talking about.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think to be fair, moving from list-based to this whole contextual, right, paragraph, or I'm giving you, synthesized content, is thanks to this whole, thing that we have seen with transformers, etc., that came out of Google, but ChatGPT has done a better job of monetizing it, right? But without that, I mean, so we are moving from one phase of technology to the next, which is list-based was inevitable because there wasn't the kind of technology to synthesize all of these results that Google is pulling, right? Now there is a technology to take all of that and come up with a coherent answer that's relevant to you and potentially even personalized, right? So personalization is the sort of extra layer on top, and Google has a ton of data about each person, obviously, every human on the planet, literally. So their ability to personalize this stuff is probably, sort of next level. The question really here is, in terms of the monetization, Eric, one direction this could go is that imagine you go and say, hey, you're asking about shoes or a particular kind of dress or something on ChatGPT, and you do a back and forth, and eventually, ChatGPT might say, hey, yeah, so if this is the right thing you're looking for, do you want me to, here's the link, right, to purchase it on Amazon, right? Would you like to buy it? Would you like me to place an order for it? And you hit yes, right? and it has your credit card details, blah blah, right? Which they
Right,
have
right.
kind
So
of they did that with Instacart, yeah.
yeah. So instead of monetizing the information, monetize the action, right? Like you could have an
That's
action
right.
monetization. Right, right.
That's
Yeah,
right. That's
right.
right. Right. Exactly. Right. Action monetization, right, could be an entirely new paradigm, which can come into play. And yeah, so then of course, OpenAI is going to have an arrangement with Amazon, with all this, right, large dominant providers, with Walmart, etc.
Right.
And we'll have to see what that revenue model shakes out like. Is some of that passed on to the user, me, when I'm buying it, or the 100% of the cost is passed to the retailer, right? So that's sort of what's the take rate, right? Is all details again that have to be figured out, which I'm sure
Well,
these guys will figure out. So
yeah,
yeah,
and even Pipe IQ, that's what you guys are doing with agents, right? You're actually
right,
monetizing
exactly.
the action, not the actual IQ. Although you guys also do IQ harnessing and signal analysis, and you have that part. But also a big part of that is
Yes.
the actionable agents that are the framework that allows you to accomplish things. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, all of this is actually intent, right? Purchase intent. When you think of what is Google AdWords, it's actually purchase intent, right? When I go search for something, Google knows, okay, what am I interested in? So therefore, I can serve up the right kind of ads, right? So I mean, that's what it is. It's Google AdWords, in short, is a purchase intent engine, right? That I'm selling to advertisers, right? So similarly, yeah, ChatGPT is going to have a ton of information on that. Pipe IQ, yeah, is basically building an intelligence layer, right, that actually picks up a bunch of signals and has some sort of intelligence around this sort of intent. And that intent layer is changing entirely, right? Again, we spoke about source, existing data sources could go obsolete or unnecessary, right? And chat gpt or other open source models could, with enabled with search, could do a far better job of it, right? And so I think that whole paradigm on how to detect intent and how to reach users, I think, is changing, and PipeIQ is kind of at the forefront of that. And a lot of this is kind of researchy in some ways, right? But of course, business users, who use platforms like PipeIQ, want to see real results today, right? Not a year from now or 2 years from now. So there's a little bit of what do you call, push and pull there, right? In terms of looking up ahead, but yet being able to serve users now and providing real
Yeah.
ROI.
Well, and I don't want to bring Elon Musk back into the picture because we managed to talk about him every single week. But he's a leader in AI, and he's looking at the same thing about monetizing X or Twitter, right? In that he started monetizing based on different models that we didn't see before, right? It's like, oh, a blue
Right.
checkbox, right? And so what he really started monetizing, which most people don't see, is the API access, right? So if you want API access to Twitter now, you're going to pay dollars if you're an enterprise, right?
Right.
Or if you're a software
Right.
developer, right? You're paying,
Right.
an AI tax, right? Or API tax, right? And
Good
I can,
money. Yeah.
right, and I can see that maybe ChatGPT never monetizes the user interface, right? Never monetizes, giving you ads of the
I
latest
see.
shoes, right? Where they could monetize is just API interface to the AI engine itself, right? Might be
Right,
that
right.
way.
I mean,
Might be.
they could build a platform exactly like AdWords, so to speak, right? Which
Right.
is a monetization engine, right? So you could be an Amazon, or you could be a Shopify store doing 2 million in revenue, and you come and advertise on it, and yeah, so where, hey, it's almost like an affiliate link, right? Ability to have your link inserted at the right time, within people's searches, right? With what they do on ChatGPT. Yes,
Well,
I mean
yeah,
that
yeah,
sounds
yeah.
like.
See, but that answer is not what I'm getting at, right? That
Yeah,
answer
that's
gets
true.
at Chat GPT having some kind of deliver an ad to me while I'm using Chat GPT. But rather, I
Yes.
go to Shopify. Shopify consumes the AI engine and pays for the AI in order to make
Yes.
my Shopify experience better, right? But I never
Right.
experienced that as an ad in Chat GPT.
That's
I
true. That's
experienced
true.
better service from Shopify, right? And I don't know
Yeah.
how it's doing a better service, but it's using AI to give me better shoe selections, right? And I never see
Yeah.
that as an ad. And so it might be the ChatGPT and the AI engine builders might never get in the ad business. They might just be in the API to their engine business, and then Shopify is in and the destinations or PipeIQ or other places that I'm going that are relying on these engines pay a service fee, but they're monetizing that AI experience at their URL, not at the ChatGPT URL.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting point. Basically, yeah, I think you are. So, I mean, we are. Things it could be a mix of revenues for all you know. Like, I mean, with X right now, I don't know what is the breakup between API revenues and ad revenues, for example, right? So, So I don't know the breakup, but
yeah, I think they got rid of most ad revenue, right? Because most advertisers went away, so that's where they started.
Right, that's true.
They started getting revenue from their API. They tripled the cost of how much it costs to interact. I know because I use some of these social media, publishing tools, and then we got notices that, hey, this is going to cost us more money now because that's what Twitter is doing, right? So you don't necessarily have to serve ads to make money in software.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm totally flabbergasted by what Elon Musk and his CEO did with all the advertisers. That's totally blows my mind. But it's an interesting strategy that they have there. So it's kind of I think API access, if it can make money, I would think, right? Okay, 500 million daily active users on ChatGPT. If ChatGPT says, I'm going to, sort of make this data available, the kind of stuff that they can sell, Eric, if you think about it, right, is again going to be purchase intent, really, right? What are people searching for, right? Like what other kind of data they can, of course, I mean, all of the data analytics that they're going to give, right? Sentiment analysis, etc. Just think of it similar to Twitter. Is all what do people want it for? When I say people, businesses want it so that they can sell stuff, right? Like, I mean, that's really what it is.
No. You're just looking because you're in PipeIQ, you're sales focused, right? I get that, right? But I'll give you an example of places that it has nothing to do with sales. Medical research, right? I'm trying to cure a disease, right? I have a service called a hospital that's curing disease, right? I need better disease cures. I need better medical, responses to what's actually happening with drug interactions, right? If you have an AI engine that knows this, that knows disease related information, right, and it is harvesting that and is constantly learning, then I might pay an API fee in order to get at that knowledge. It's nothing to do with search, it's the knowledge itself, and then my service uses that knowledge to do better service, right? That's what I'm talking about, right?
So I mean, in that example, right, if we were to kind of just dig a little deeper, you are Mayo Clinic, let's say, and you are trying to you have researchers, of course, who are trying to delve into some cancer topic, etc. Now you already have access to GPT-4o, let's say, right? Like you have access to the model. Now there is search capability, which I'm sure at some point is going to be released natively within the 4o. So now you can go ask questions of it, right? Which you couldn't ask kind of Google and get some reasonable answers, right? So can I use this model for research? Yes. And is that already available? Basically, yes, right? Like I can go ping 4o today, a researcher at Mayo Clinic, right? Now, what is interesting, honestly, since we're talking on this topic is, I think the ability to ingest data around a lot of the research that's already available out there, right? Like that's new. Ability to create knowledge graph, right? Knowledge graph, graph bag kind of technologies, right? Retrieval augmentation. That is all new, I think. So, but
and I don't want to confuse search revenue with just general AI use revenue. What I'm saying is that you don't have to necessarily monetize search at all. You just monetize the LLM, right? The model itself, right? And then you monetize it by API access, right? To where the industry, the world can access the collective mind, right, called OpenAI, right, to get answers back, right? Now, how you monetize those answers as a consumer of that API, could be different. The hospital's gonna, the Mayo Clinic's gonna do cancer research. You're gonna do sales acceleration, but it's not gonna be just ad revenue or sales revenue, sales enablement. I think it's much bigger than that. Right.
Yeah. I understand what you're saying. It's probably, I think that's a fair comment. Right? Like, I mean, Google is used by a ton of people for different things, obviously, not just search, right? But Google AdWords, though, for good or for bad, is used by people to sell you things, right? Like, so If you are a cancer researcher and ask a certain question, maybe a Thermo Fisher or a Gilead is going to come in and insert an ad, right? Like, so, I mean, but yeah.
Well, and
I mean,
that's where I think Google left itself vulnerable, right? Even though they're making a ton of money, right? As an AI shows up, and I don't have to deal with the first 3 pages of ads, right? Because after all, I'm a human. I'm looking for the information. I'm not looking for ads, right? I'm not looking for a bunch of different products. Like I'm really Google searching something because I want something, right? And usually it's knowledge, not ads, right? So that's where I think an AI, I get to interact with the knowledge, and then I don't even have to go to Google anymore. I'm going to different websites that specialize in that knowledge, and they're actually API back to the main LLM, right, which is OpenAI. So I think that
one more thing that comes up for me as you're talking about this is also the buying process is changing. Okay, so we are talking. We spoke a lot right now about from the seller's perspective, or right, like ads and so on. But think about the person who's searching. I mean, to your point, right? Who's that person has a certain goal in mind, right? Whatever goal he wants to get accomplished, be it piece of information, to buy something or something else. Now, the buying process, if it was a buying interaction, or I'm searching for something which involves buying some sort of technology, service, etc., to accomplish my goal, a lot of that now is being done by the person on his or her own, right? So like the typical number that's thrown around these days is that 70 or 80% of all research is done before anybody reaches out to a salesperson or interacts
social
with a
media
at
is
all,
impacting that. Social media, other places,
And I think with things like ChatGPT or Perplexity or Google in the new sort of chat interface kind of world, it's just going to make it easier for you to do your research, right? Like,
and I'll give you an example of what I'm trying to talk about here too, which I think you're on it. I think it's a good dialogue. If I look at my last 20 Google searches, not a single one of them were about buying anything, right? I was going to Google to look for information, right? Usually I do medical research or whatever. I'm looking for studies, medical reports, whatever on particular topics, right? And so, I do a CRISPR lab where I do gene editing as a hobby, right? It's just a pure hobby for me, and I don't do it that often. But when I'm going to Google, I'm not looking to buy anything, right? Which is why all these lists of ads that they do stuff at me in order to monetize that experience to pay for the engine. And so I'm looking forward to the fact, where I actually go to buy stuff? Where do I go to buy stuff? Where does everybody go to buy stuff now? That's right. If I want to do a search on something I want to buy, I go to Amazon. I don't go to Google, right? I go to Google because right now, if I want an answer to a problem that I don't really care to do research on, I just want a nice, clean, couple paragraph answer, then I go to ChatGPT, right? Because now in my head I go, well, if I would just want an answer that I can mail off to somebody, go to ChatGPT. If I want to buy something, I go to Amazon. And if I want to get some kind of data that I can't find, I do grind through Google and have to grind through their lists of ads and sponsorships. Some of that's actually fine. I don't mind looking at, suggested material that's up at the top. Sometimes it's pretty good, even though it's paid, right? Sometimes that paid search is fine, right? So it'll be interesting. Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Like,
I think we are going to move to an entirely new world. Honestly, like as you're talking, my brain is going to the fact that, so in terms of knowing what people know about users, right? Like Google knows a ton about the users, right? So there's the whole question of how do you cookies and so on and so forth, right? Like, I think like while Google knows a ton of stuff, it is restricted in its ability to personalize, right? Now imagine in the ChatGPT world, right? When I use my ChatGPT license right now, the $20 a month thing that I pay for, my data, whatever I search is private, and I mean that's what they tell me, and there's some sort of sequestration of my data. Okay. Now, even though, so when OpenAI knows whatever it does about me, imagine when agents come into play and, just if you were to take that argument about, hey, buying stuff from Amazon as an affiliate link, so to speak, right? I could program and say, hey, buy the best product in the category with at least 7,000 reviews or 10,000 reviews or something, right? Which is my personal preference, let's say, and it's coded in. and it can automatically go and do that. Like, I mean, this is like one-click purchase on steroids, kind of thing, right? This kind of capability, right? ChatGPT is going to have a Google. I mean, that sort of experience, personalization of the experience, I think is also going to be new, Eric. I mean, this is not something that we have seen till date, right? So, and in some ways, I mean, think about voice search, right? Like, I mean, we are currently all our conversation until now has been around, hey, ChatGPT, typing, paragraphs, etc. But imagine a world where everything is going to be on the phone, all right? And I'm going to, just like do voice commands and interacting with these chat engines, right? Or AI engines, be it Google or Perplexity or OpenAI, doesn't matter. It has to actually already have context, because I can't tell you, I can't go fill a form. I can't like even verbally, fill out 10
Yeah,
forms.
right.
I'm
not typing in
just
even.
not going to happen.
Yep. Right.
Anything, right? Like, so personalization becomes like table stakes and even necessary. So from a regulation standpoint, as far as, you are keeping the data sequestered, private, et cetera, right? Which is going to be a new sort of field of regulation, even for all you know. The it can actually benefit the user. I think this could be actually very beneficial for users. Can remove a ton of friction, right? And it's not just about buying experiences, as to your point, right? Like, I mean, if I'm just searching for information about some health, yeah, I mean, if I have a health issue that I'm looking up for me or my family and so on, yeah, I'm not looking to buy anything. I'm just trying to understand where things stand, right? And yeah, I mean, that can be that's an information exercise. And if I can get stuff that's personalized for my situation, that's what I need. I don't need to go look through even 10 paragraphs. I mean, I don't need, just tell me what's relevant for me. I mean, that is huge, actually.
Right. And for me now, I think it really does, pulling this back up to the main topic, it might relegate search to the buggy whips of time, right? Like the idea that I had to go to a google.com and type in a thing and page through list of content is like, might be over. And that's why everybody's like that's why we're doing this podcast, right? Because it is a race to a paradigm shift. Right. It is a race to a paradigm shift across businesses, across sales automation, across medical research, across every aspect of life is going to change, just the way Google changed everything and Amazon changed everything. As an AI engine that we interact with is going to change everything in the way we get our information. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think we are looking ahead at a amazing different paradigm, and that's why we are doing this podcast, right? I think AI, I'm definitely, not that we are drinking the Kool-Aid, but I think there's definitely a feeling that, hey, lots of things are going to be different. It's going to change, right? And I just read an article. Yeah. Sorry.
Everybody has an AI moment, where you realize how this is impact. For me, it was using ChatGPT to write PowerShell code for VMware, right? Like all of a sudden, something that used to take us, a day or two to go build, took like literally 3 minutes, right? And then the next thing you know, we had problems. We couldn't figure out how to write the code. And all of a sudden you're writing, because you have that AI moment where you're like, okay, this has just changed everything and how I used to do things, right? And you're like, okay, now I go to ChatGPT, I use the API, I don't use the API, I use the AI, but then we started using API keys to get at it, so you're not driving people to ChatGPT, you're actually bringing them to our site that's writing PowerShell, but then we use ChatGPT to write the code, and then we expose it to the user at our site, not at ChatGPT. And so you realize that, this changes everything in the way people interact with, a browser and websites, right? Like just
yes. It's a huge paradigm shift. I mean, anybody who is still skeptical about it should talk to us.
Right.
They should
and
meet us at Town and Country.
what this podcast hopefully is doing is creating aha moments for other people that are listening, right? Where you can relate to the things we're talking about, because we're seeing it. We're like, oh my gosh, we got to share this, because in Silicon Valley, this is this is what's actually happening, right? And the rest of the world will catch up to this, right, over time. And that's what Silicon Valley does, right? We have VC people, we invest in startups, we have people that are doing startups. So yeah, it is great.
No, it's great. I don't know what else you have on the hopper, Eric, for the rest of the next few minutes, but I want to put a sort of a plug for PipeIQ. We are hiring a new engineering lead and hiring software engineers also. So definitely, if folks are passionate about AI and want to work for a really, really early stage sort of startup, definitely hit me up either on LinkedIn or my email, which is my first name at pipeiq.ai. That'd be great. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Well, I know that we've been going for 50 minutes, and at the last 10 minutes of the show, we always kind of do. If you've managed to listen to us this long, you must be our friend by now. So we'll do what we always do at the end of the show, which is one.
Yeah.
What do you think was the most exciting thing you heard this week? Right. Like, and I
No, I
know
think a
obviously it's going to
search.
be,
Yeah,
yeah.
search. It's the search space, right? I think it's definitely the big one, right? On the I don't know whether I should call it political side, but the whole Chinese, Chinese military using these LLMs, I think now brings up something that people have been talking for a while, which is, hey, is AI going to change warfare, right? Like, how is that going to change as well? So that's a little bit in the back burner right now, but could become
Mhm.
even more prominent as the months go by. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
been super interesting for me. What's interesting for you, Eric?
I don't think I have anything. The only interesting I'd say noticed is, and this is nothing to do with AI because this is a podcast. You just learn. I feel like the planes have gotten faster. I think they're going just a little bit faster because it feels like the flights are getting me back and forth across the pond, right? A little bit easier every time I do it. Now the planes actually had power. They have power right there. They got all the movies on demand. They got they got a lot of luxury. We were talking
Internet
about,
too these days. Yeah,
Boeing and how Boeing's been having problems lately. And I look at the complexity of a plane now, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, they got an AI that's landing the plane by now, right? You got a lot of systems
right.
in a plane, but I would say that they just seem to be able to get me to Europe more comfortably than they ever have in the past. So that's a goodness, right? That I kind of experienced this week. Like I hadn't been to Europe in a year, right? And you get on a new
Right.
liner and then I broke it up into two flights, one to Philly, from Palo Alto to Philly, and then from Philly to right into Barcelona. And it was actually a pleasant experience. And I was in the cheap flight. I didn't pay extra I didn't even, I was in the back third of the plane, in
Right.
small
Yeah.
seats, but it was actually pretty good. And I think it's all based on the fact that I didn't spend a lot of time in the plane. I swear they're going a little faster, right? Like they've tweaked up
No, I think the
speed is
whole
down. They
segment.
are, and I think that comes down to fuel efficiency. I think the fuel efficiency has gotten to the point where they've always had the ability to go a little bit faster. I don't know what the speed of sound is, whether it's 610 miles an hour or 580 or
Right. Right.
something, but they always slowed down because it's expensive. Fuel is expensive, and they traded time for fuel. But with the new Dreamliner engines and the Airbus engines that are, which I think are all GE related, those guys are getting efficient enough now that they can push the throttle up to nearly the speed they don't break the speed of sound, or they try not to. It's not good for the aircraft. But
Right.
I think they're getting closer and closer every time. So that's what I'd say. Yeah, AI wise, I'm kind of in the boat with you, which is, oh look, now we have search, and now I'm seeing how search played out, and I've heard Google responding and wasn't sure what they meant by it, but now I get it, right? Like it's definitely going to be there.
It's pretty interesting.
What keeps you up at night? Like
Hey, I
anything
mean,
that
I
makes you
think,
nervous?
I mean, I have to, just as I am sort of, bringing on new people to the team, so I mean, recruiting is sort of definitely top of mind for me. So this is just more of a pipe thing, right? Really.
Right. Okay.
So just
Right.
kind of making sure that the engine keeps humming, making customers happy, right? And then getting, so pilots and so on. So
Yeah,
it's
pilots,
all,
everything,
yeah.
everything keeps you busy. You have 1,000 things to keep you up at night. I don't think
It's true.
I don't think much is keeping you up at night, other than we just keep getting older every year. And it's like AI is such a fun thing to watch and play out. And I did see an image of Elon's robots, Optimus Prime or whatever they're calling
I didn't see
the
it now.
robot, and they had like a line of them all marching in unison now, right? So we talk about AI and self-lining planes and such, but yeah, here come the bots, right? The real robots, not
The
a
real robots. Yeah.
not a web bot, but actually a real robot. And just watching AI, show up in my mail stream now. My mail client now has, a built-in stream. So everybody's getting in the business. You got robots coming. I think I saw an image of Elon kissing a fembot, right? So there's some female bot that's there, and he was like kissing it. Like it was a PR stunt for sure, but nonetheless, the real bots are coming, right? And I think that might keep me up at night a little bit. Like, when are they going to replace me, right? Like, and so continuing on.
It's all. The whole AI thing, I saw WhatsApp forward where Elon Musk was saving a girl in Germany, somebody 5-year-old girl in the train or subway or something like. So probably was a deep fake.
Deep fake.
With the AI,
we get that all my YouTube videos and Twitter videos and Facebook videos all have certain element of deep fakeness on them, or AI generated, right? And you have to kind of pay attention to see what you're actually watching now, because you just don't know what's real, what's not. So it's been fun.
It's super hard. So that's the flip side of AI, I guess, in a way.
Well, Rajesh, thanks a lot for spending time with me. For our listeners, thanks for making it to the end. Always good to do that. And we'll be back again next week. Every Sunday, we try to record an episode and give you the updates of what's actually happening. So give us a follow. I think we're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. I think you should probably follow us on iTunes. So if you use Apple's podcast app, you can search on PipeIQ and follow us, and then get your updates right to your phone. If you use Spotify, you can give us a follow there. Our episodes are up there. Produce them every week. We can either get you an aha moment, or you can reach out to Rajesh and tell us what you think of this stuff and what you think is going to happen, because we're always looking for content.
And then exactly, we want feedback, right? Like, so we can iterate based on what people think of the content that we are producing. That'll be great.
Well, an hour is come and gone. Thanks a lot for spending time, and we'll see you again next week.
All right, bye guys, see you.